Hey everybody, welcome back to the Print 3D channel. Today is May 29th, and that means day 149 of the 3DP 365 project. And on today's episode, we printed out fidget spinners, so stick around. Hey everybody, welcome back, and thank you for joining me here for day 149 of the 3DP 365 project. As always, down in the description there's a fact section. There's also a MatterHackers affiliate link. If you're in the market for some new filament, just use that MatterHackers affiliate link and you really help out the channel. Today's episode's all about this very cool fidget spinner I designed in Fusion360, and we printed ours in two colors on our gMax 1.5 XT Plus. And for this print, we use MatterHackers PRO PLA in the color of Midnight Blue and red, which I'm calling gMax red because it really matches my printer. And our print turned out awesome. Our little spinner looks really good, and it spins really great too. I really love these things. I'm totally addicted to these things now. But first, before we talk about any more about the print, let's head over to Fusion360 and I'll show you how I designed it. Okay, so here we are in Fusion360, and I am by far no expert at this program. I'm just learning it, and I don't dare try to teach you any kind of tutorial at this point. I just know the basics of building a few basic objects based on sketches, and then extruding them and a few other operations. But here is my design for the fidget spinner. And basically what we have here is two circles or two sketches that were created for the bearings. And the bearings, standard bearings from what I understand, skateboard bearings are 22 millimeters across. So my outer bearing I have at 22.15 and my inner bearing I have at 22.1. And the reason why I did that is there is a little bit of shrinkage that goes on. And of course I could do a couple iterations and change these dimensions because this is a parametric model, and I'll be able to do any changes I want to this, and at the end I won't have to go back and redo everything that I did to create the spinner. But for now, I was using this, and after a test print of 22.1 on both of these, I couldn't even get the bearing in here, so there was a little bit of shrinkage. And plus the way Simplify 3D works, you can do outer perimeters first or inner perimeters first, and the default is the inner perimeters first, and what that will do is it'll push out the outer perimeter just a little bit and cause a little bit of bulging, and that's what really creates your layer lines. And I could do that switch in Simplify 3D and do a much more precise print, but I chose to just kind of move along quickly through this and create my fidget spinner. So these are the numbers I came up with, which is 22.15 and 22.1 for my bearings. I also created an offset sketch at 28 millimeters from the center, and this would be the actual holder of the bearing. For the inside, my vision for this was I wanted it to kind of reflect my maker coin, or a gear type of coin, maker gear I guess you could call it. So I created a sketch for the outer part, which is this outer part here, from the center, and then I created a couple other smaller circular sketches and made those into notches. So when we go to the next stage, you'll see that I deleted certain areas to do my extrude. And one of the great things about Fusion360, and I really love this program and I'm learning it more every day, is that it creates a timeline for you, and I know you have to turn that on, but it's on by default. And basically what this does is it gives you the ability to dial back your design to a certain stage and make improvements and changes or do whatever you need to do, and then you can push through. And obviously we have to stop sketch first. And I like to go to the isometric view because it kind of looks cool, and we'll zoom out a little bit here. And again, I won't go through all the little commands that I do in Fusion360 because there are plenty of good tutorials out there to learn this program. And honestly, I watched 5 minutes of one tutorial and I was able to make my fidget spinner. So anyway, moving on. If we move through the timeline here, you can see all the different commands that I've done to make my fidget spinner. So the first thing I did was extrude it. And before I did that, and it doesn't show you that in the stages here, is you select everything, and then you hold down your shift key and deselect the items you don't want. And those will be eliminated from your sketch. So if I just deselect here and keep moving on, you can see the parts that I deleted to make my little gear look, my little maker coin gear look fidget spinner. And of course I deleted the interior just to lighten the load a little bit and save some plastic, because I wanted the weight to be on the end, not in the middle, so it really spins. And then I extruded this up 7 millimeters because that's the standard height of most skate bearings. After that, I started doing some fillets, and I went around and I selected, and you can just hit the F key and that'll bring up the fillet menu. And I went around and selected the outer top edge, and I gave it a 0.75 millimeter fillet. And then I moved on to the bottom edge and I did the same thing. That way it would be easier to come off the print bed. Plus I gave it some nice rounded edges, and we don't want any sharp edges on this. The next thing to do was to duplicate this in a pattern, and I believe that's under Create, Pattern, and we did a circular pattern, and I did 3. So it gave us our 3-stemmed fidget spinner. And then the next thing you need to do is connect these objects, or combine them as they call them in Fusion360. And I believe that's under Modify. Yep, Modify, Combine, and there's some commands that do that. Again, I'm not going to walk you through this because there are plenty of good tutorials out there, and I'm definitely a novice user. And once I had it combined, then I was able to save this out and as an STL file under this Make menu and go to 3D Print. And I can bring up this menu for you. I didn't do any refinement options. I went straight to just output at high based on the system itself. And I know Fusion360 is going to do an amazing job of combining the objects into one, as you can see. And you can turn on the preview mesh, and it takes a little while to display it, but anyway, that's how you create your file, your STL file. Once you have it selected, you select the item here, and then all this becomes illuminated so you can make all your settings. You can preview the mesh, and this will take a few seconds to preview, and you can see it's a pretty involved mesh, but it's not too bad. And then just hit OK, save it as an STL file, and you're good to go for printing. I also created the little cover, and that part of the sketch is here. And for this, I just created a couple of circular sketches and extruded them to different heights. And as you can see, as I dial through here, my first extrude, I'll turn on the body in the little menu here, is the top part of the disc. And then I extruded just a little lip that was just a little bit larger than the inset of the bearing. That way it wasn't rubbing against anything and it had a good clearance. And then of course I created the little knob that actually goes in. And I think this was 6.5 millimeters, so you could put 2 of them on, one on either end, and kind of close this up. And again, once this was all done, I exported this out under the Make, Get 3D Print menu, and made my STL files, and then we head over to Simplify 3D and get these ready for printing. Alright, so here we are in Simplify 3D. I just want to show you my basic settings here for my fidget spinner, and I brought the STL file in, and I think it looks awesome. I really love this kind of maker coinish look to it, gear look to it. And my process settings were pretty straightforward. We used a 0.2 millimeter layer height with 3 top layers, 3 bottom layers, and 3 perimeters. I also set my first layer width to 100% because we are creating something where other parts fit into it, so we kind of want those to be perfect fit. We also ran a skirt 10 millimeters from the object at 5 outlines just to make sure our extruder was primed and ready. For infill, I used 20% for this model, obviously generating no support material. For temperature, because we're running at 100% on our first layer, I want to make sure it sticks really good because I'm not putting down any extra plastic to make sure it sticks good. So I set my first layer temperature for 210, and then after that we slide it down to 205 for the rest of the print, which is my standard print temperature for MatterHackers PRO PLA. And I have my 3-stage cooling system set up, and I backed down my third stage of the cooling from 90 to 85% here. And then of course we ran this out at 40 millimeters per second. And if I hit prepare to print, you can see how it slices. And as you can see, the geometry looks pretty sound, and if we play this through, I can slide this through. I don't see any weird geometry errors. We're getting quite a few perimeters here. It looks like 6 perimeters total on the outside with no infill. So these are nice and strong, and they'll be able to hold the bearings pretty snugly. And that's our print. And then of course we sent it off to the gMax for printing. So once we had these designed and printed out on our gMax 1.5 XT Plus, the last step was to create the little bearing caps. And I printed those also in different colors. I printed some in the midnight blue, and I also printed a few of them in red, because I went ahead and designed actually a smaller fidget spinner for my wife and for the kids. This one's much smaller and it'll fit better in their hands, and you can see the different size difference here. And I've already put the center bearing in with the caps on it just to see how it spins. And These things spin really, really good. I'm really happy with the results. And I did have a couple of iterations. I didn't go with my very first print. This was my first print. I know it looks exactly the same except for it's not two color. This one, the bearings didn't fit really well. They were way too snug, and I didn't want to snap the plastic trying to force them in. And I've seen people use like a rubber mallet to get these things in, and I didn't want to go that far. I wanted them to be snug, but not break the plastic snug. So this was my first print, and it's not perfect, so we did some iterations. The second print that I did was just a little bit bigger, and I showed you in Fusion360 that we used 22.1, and that was the original measurement that I used with a 0.1 shrinkage factor around the bearings because they're 22 millimeters across. And this one we did 22.15 for the outer rings because that seemed to be where the only problem I had putting in the bearings. So this iteration works, and I was really happy with this, and I assembled it and it spins great. But then I thought to myself, I want to do two color because I haven't seen any really cool two color fidget spinners that were 3D printed. So what I did is I just ran the change filament command and added some red right in the middle of it. And since it's 36 layers tall for 7 millimeters at 0.2 millimeter layer height, I knew it would be an easy change. I would just do it at 12 and then once again at 24, and that would give us a nice little two color fidget spinner. And I really love these things, and I'm probably going to design a whole lot more of these. But for now, our print looks awesome and it really spins, and I really love these things, and I'm definitely going to go get some more bearings and print a whole bunch more and design a few more. And I have a couple of cool ideas to do some extreme fidget spinners, and we'll talk about those in another episode. But for now, we have our very first fully 3D printed, except for the bearings, two color, designed in Fusion360 fidget spinner. Well, that about wraps it up for day 149 of the 3DP 365 project. I hope you guys found this episode interesting and informative. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share those videos, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.